So what the goal is of this talk here is really to teach you about a system that you can use to get hired remotely by a company, and also 3 things that you can walk away and do now. I plan this presentation is usually about 45 minutes, 50 minutes, and what we'll do is we'll have about 10, 15 minutes at the end for any questions, and should be pretty self-explanatory. So again, super excited to go through this. What do I mean by no application? How is that possible, right? We see job applications and obviously we have to send in an application, right? Well, that's not always the case. What I want people to consider is how can we move away from the traditional application process of applying and waiting, which all of us have maybe learned incorrectly at some point. So when we were in school, in university, all that, growing up in the world that we're in now, there really wasn't a class on how to find jobs. And I think it's probably a lot of things that they didn't put in class: financial management, networking, things that are super important to us that are not actually in curriculum. And I find that job searching is one of those. Add on the layer of trying to find something remote, forget about it. It's even more difficult. It's even more competitive. So you have to do it differently than other people are doing. You can't just send in an application and a resume and then wait for a response. It does not work. And I want to tell a quick story about how I got involved at Remote Year. Now, Remote Year is a fully distributed remote company that has people all over the world, and they do basically they set up logistics for people to travel to different countries each month. You pay a monthly fee, and I ended up getting a job with them. Now, how did I get a job with them? Well, I did a program. So I became a customer first. I did a Remote Year program with the intention of, oh, well, I want to do this program, but I also want a job at this company. By the time that I got to the end of my 4-month program with Remote Year, 2 people in the organization had already put my resume forward for the job position that I wanted. I never applied. And I ended up, the interview process was very easy. It was something where, for me, I had already built all this trust by being in the community. So that's just one example of how you can do the quote unquote no application. And I wanted to give a live example of how this worked for me at one point. So those are the goals of the talk. What are you going to get by the end? So if you stay till the end, I'm going to give you a puppy. No, I'm not going to give you a puppy, but I will give you something. I will give you a cheat sheet. This cheat sheet is called the 13 LinkedIn settings you must optimize to avoid being filtered out of the resume pile. I tried to think of what is the longest title that I could fit on this ebook, and that's what I figured to be the longest title. So it's still a great resource. It's my most popular resource of anything that I've ever created. So I think you're really going to love it. So stay to the end, and I'll let you know exactly where you can get that. So who am I, and why is it that I'm talking to you today? Well, that's me. My name is Jordan Carroll. I'm the remote job coach. I started working in corporate in 2013. At the time, I was commuting an hour and a half each way to the office. Awful. If anybody has done that, you know that that's no fun. But I ended up at about 7 months into that job, 6, 7 months into that job, I negotiated my work to be remote 1 day a week on Fridays. And I really never looked back beyond that point. After the trainings that I was in, about 9 months in, I ended up working fully remote for this organization. And this is an organization that's pretty large. It's called IBM, if you've ever heard of it. 400,000 people, and a very interesting time for me to work remotely for a Fortune 50 company. And so since then, I've worked remotely in various industries, in various different roles, in PR, in events, in travel, in all sorts of things. And remote work really saved my life. Like a lot of the people in this community, I think remote work is that thing that's like, it's the backbone of the freedom and flexibility that we have to do everything in our lives the way that we want to. So remote work is super important. It's really important not only to find something that's fulfilling to you, but to understand what kind of process you could use to find work that allows you to have those particular priorities in your life that are the most important. So I help people find that. I don't help people just find remote jobs. I help people find the freedom and flexibility in their life. That's what really keeps me going. That's what keeps me motivated to do what I do. So what about you? I want to learn a little bit about the few people that are here in the audience. So in the chat box, where is it that you live? Do you currently work remote? And then what role could you do, or do you do remotely? I'll give you all a minute or two to jump in the chat. So we've got Ray, Emily, Magda, Tiffany, Raj, and Rogelio. Rogelio, did I say your name right? Rogelio?
Yeah, that's right.
Perfect. And I do want this to be an interactive thing. So there will be times where I can ask you to come off mute. And if you want to actually come off mute, you can certainly do that to explain what it is that you do, since we do have a very intimate group here. Okay, so Tiffany, we got Ray in Ireland, Tiffany's in California. Where are you from in California, Tiffany?
I'm south of Sacramento, about half an hour.
Cool. So I'm from Fremont originally, and I went to Chico, so I probably know exactly where you're.
Nice. Yep.
Awesome. So Bay Area. So Raj is also in the Bay Area. Where in the Bay are you, Raj?
I'm in Cupertino.
Cupertino. Awesome. I played baseball there, actually. You remember? Is Hardkey still there? Or have you heard of Hardkey?
I am the wrong person. Although I watch a little bit of Giants, I watch more basketball and football.
Gotcha. Well, I figured it's in Cupertino. There's like this little complex. It's called Hardkey, and it's like a baseball thing. But cool. So we got Cupertino, and we got France. We've got a couple people that are remote, in project management. Awesome. So as far as you guys are, your interest in coming here today, what is it that you are interested in learning about? Is it finding a new remote role? It seems like most people are probably remote. Is it trying to avoid going back to the office if you have to? Like, what's the main thing you want to learn out of
today? For me, it's probably just in case I need to find a new role. And that my career trajectory, and may want to do something different that is not necessarily always a remote job.
That's great. And the best time to learn something like this and to do something like this is when you're not looking, because what a lot of people make the mistake of doing, and I would end up talking to people on the phone about their remote pivot and what it is that they want to do. It's too late, or it's not too late, but they've gotten laid off or something's happened, and then they're like frantic, right, and desperate. And that's the worst place to come from when you're looking for a new position. So it's really great that you put yourself in a position to find something new when you don't need something. So great. So let's go into this a little bit further. And then the next one here is why this is important. Well, the future, and I usually had this slide before, was the future of work is remote. This is the now. Right, remote is the now. This has been proven through COVID. It really accelerated remote work by 10 years or something. It's pretty crazy. And this stat is actually higher now. I think it's 82 or 84%. There's a Gartner study that said that there's CFOs that are saying basically they're going to be allowing their company to be at least partially remote after all this. And it's a really big shift that we're going through right now, but it's important for us to understand this is going to be the normal going forward. There's 6 billion people who are going to be on the internet by 2022. And then Gen Z, the generation that's grown up with the normalcy of the internet, I don't think any Gen Zer can say that their whole life hasn't been on Instagram, which is pretty crazy, or at least it's been on the internet. I can't imagine my baby picture, like everything from my baby picture to like my awkward years for online. That's just crazy to me. So I think that with that normalcy of the internet, Gen Z is going to be expecting flexible work. That's going to be something that's going to happen. And then the more remote jobs paradox. So a lot more companies are going remote. That means that there's more remote jobs. The paradox is that means that there's more people expecting to have a remote job. There's more competition. So we have to really figure out how it is that we stand out in these situations where there's thousands of people potentially applying for some of these positions. So how I'm going to lay this out, I'm going to go 3 specific mistakes that I see people make. In those mistakes, I'm also going to talk about what you can do differently, and then I'm going to show you an actual example from one of my clients in each one of these places where they did something, because I think case studies really bring this to life. So the first mistake I see is not having a strategy. Most people go through a job search without a strategy, and that's to say they open their computer and they're like, all right, well, I guess today I'll do some networking, or I guess I'll apply to a few jobs. Like anything else in your life, you have to have a strategy. And when you don't have a strategy, you end up like adopting this mindset of failure and uncertainty. And that creates this feedback loop where maybe you're not getting responses, and then you expect that to happen. They're also looking at the wrong resources. They find scam listings, or they spend way too much time on job boards I see that through most of the people that I talk to is they spend day in and day out on job boards, but it's really not the most effective use of time. They're also disorganized. So they have a search where they've got applications over here, they got resumes over here, they got all these different things that are happening, but they don't have any central way of how they've organized, how am I reaching out? How am I keeping track of things? And that becomes very frustrating. A lot of people I see have a willingness to do any job as long as it's remote. And that's going to be tough as well. And then also looking the same as everyone else. When you don't have a strategy and you end up looking the same as everybody else, you're not going to get preferred. So what's the solution? Well, the solution is that you do need a strategy. You need some way of forming a plan or a process for yourself. And it starts with a mindset. Like most things in life, it starts with a belief that you can actually be successful. Many people overlook this, and this becomes like your beliefs and your ability to believe that something is possible will affect your entire perspective of your life. So if you don't have a belief that this is actually going to work for you and it's subconsciously sabotaging you, you will not succeed in a job search. A lot of people, as I mentioned, use a lot of job boards, but you really need to be using your LinkedIn as far as creating networking opportunities, as far as creating a personal brand, as far as connecting with the right people in the companies. You can use Google Advanced Search, and I actually think you only use a few remote job boards. You pick a few that are specific to your niche or you like to use, and you set up those alerts. Rather than scouring them every single day, you make the jobs come to you. You also have to block off time. So during your week, you need to figure out how many hours am I actually allocating towards a job search, and how am I splitting that up over the days? Because the consistency in which you have in your strategy, in your search, is going to be a reflection of the actual results that you're going to get. And you have to target an exact position. People that are looking for everything often find nothing. So if you go into this, like, I'm a jack of all trades, I can do marketing, I can do sales, I can do customer success, I can do this, I can do that. You're going to come across like you don't actually have any expertise. So you have to be very targeted to what that position is. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And of course, you can't look like everyone else. The goal is, along the process, you have to look different than everyone else, every part of the process. That's the only way to stand out. And we'll talk a little bit about how to do that as well. So what's an example of this? So here's a client of mine that was applying for a position. And one of the ways that you can look different is through what we call video applications. So video applications can be a really useful way to, one, bring to life who you are, right? Some companies actually require a video application, but I would say no matter if they require one or not, that you send one, because this will really bring to life who it is that you are, what it is that you do, your specialty. So he was applying, and this was funny because this was the first application we had ever done together, and he was applying for a company that's a pretty well-known email marketing company, and he was applying the last day that it was available. It was about to expire. He just found it. He hit me up. He was like, "Hey, I need to figure this out. Like, let's brainstorm some ideas." So we quickly came to this idea where he actually created a landing page with the company's software solution, and then created a video of him explaining in about a minute and a half exactly why he was a fit for the particular role. Now, this became an extremely valuable asset for him, and it got him into the interview process on the last day that was possible with a company that's throughout 51 different countries, I believe, and actually it'll be on the next slide. And he's from Honduras. So this was a guy that really needed to be with a company that allowed distributed remote work from people from anywhere, and it was a very competitive process, but it was something where this was really how he was able to stand out. So if you were to make a video application, type with me here in the chat box, what would you put in your video application? Let's just say that it was for the role that you're looking for. What would you highlight about yourself in that video application, or what would you highlight about the company? Or you can come off mute if that's easier. I know it's probably a longer thing to type. So introduce, quick elevator background, why I'm excited about the role. Depends on the job role. Definitely depends on the job role. I would try to show my skills with the job it's applying for, and hopefully utilize the company's experience related to challenges they may face. Awesome. Yeah, so all these things, there are components of all this that will definitely be in there. Now, the key thing about video applications is that you can use your cover letter, which will be specific to the actual company, as kind of a guide, right? It's kind of an outline. But what you want to do is show them your personality and really focus on what's the culture of this organization and how would you create a video that shows I'm a cultural fit for this company. One of the hardest things for companies to understand is how much of a fit someone is for the culture. And they really don't find that out until you actually start working there. So you have to de-risk any thought that they might have that you're not a good fit for the culture. And one of the ways to do that is a video application where you explain, like some of the people had said in here, the skills that are relevant to the job. I like to always kind of start with a hook or something funny or something silly, especially if it's a company that appreciates that kind of goofiness. And you want to have that hook at the beginning. That's an important part to get them to keep watching. And as you go along, you want to really dive into the context of why it is that you're reaching out, and then your experience first, because that gives them something to say, oh, okay, that's why they're reaching out. And then you go into the specific ways that your experience relates to the role, and you always have a call to action too. So your call to action is going to be to get the interview. And one of the things that's tough for people to realize in their messaging is every piece of messaging that you send to someone is only attempting to do one thing. So that's to say, your application and your resume, when you're sending that in, it's only to get the interview. You're not trying to get the job. So don't overcomplicate things and try to take each message one at a time as far as the goal that you have with it. And then let's take a look here at this is the same, not looking like everyone else. So this was the response from the recruiter at the company that the guy I had showed you, and it was that he moved on to the next round of the process. This is actually 2 interviews in, where it's 100% remote company, 51 team members across 40 cities. Awesome, because 4 months before that, he'd been looking to try to get an interview and get a remote job and hadn't even gotten an interview. So a lot of this process is about figuring out what's going to at least get you responses, what's going to at least get you interviews, and you kind of iterate on each part of the process. It's like, well, if I'm getting interviews, but I'm not getting the next step, what's wrong in that part of my process where I'm not getting that next step or that next offer, and figuring out what it is that you need to do differently. And this is another client who had used a video application. She had gotten this really great response that they had over 300 candidates, but hers was simply amazing. Hers was kind of one of a kind. And that's really what you want, is you want to look different than every single other person in that process so that you can get hired, right? You can get that interview. Okay. So that's like the first big mistake was explained there. And now let's go into not having an online presence. So when we think about a job search is actually a marketing exercise. You need to use the company's words to describe yourself. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you look at a job description, it's going to tell you exactly how you should describe yourself in a cover letter, for instance. And some people have told me, oh, I didn't know I should just copy and paste those words. I thought that I should, reword them myself. You should actually be copying and pasting phrases and words from a job description and putting them in your cover letter. And like really customizing everything and using that language that they're using. And that's a big thing that I see people not doing. So they also are focusing on what they need out of a job. Some people that I've seen, their LinkedIn's not updated, their social media's got not safe for work content. They haven't really kept up with how their online presence looks, or there's nothing to find when searching them online, which can be just as bad as finding bad things. So the solution here is to treat yourself like a product. Treat companies as your potential customers. Use the words to describe yourself that the companies use, and then create a resume that's all about the company benefit. Again, you're not looking for a job. you're looking to fill a need for the company. And that mindset has to be throughout your entire job search. That's the mindset that you have to have. And then you optimize your LinkedIn and your other social media with those keywords and things that help describe you, and then find ways to showcase your expertise online. There's a lot of different ways to do that. But one of the things you can do is use your LinkedIn as a landing page. Now, has anybody ever seen a headline that says seeking remote job opportunities? I'm curious to know, why do you think that using seeking remote job opportunities or seeking job opportunities would be a bad thing to have in your headline? And feel free to pop in the chat. Or if anyone wants to come off mute, you're certainly welcome to do that as well.
It's too general, maybe.
Yep, unfocused, too general, sounds desperate. What else? Anything else? Okay. Based on what we just learned, you have to position yourself as solving a problem. If you look at this, who is this about? If you write that in your headline, that's about you. It's not about the company. That's not about providing a solution. That's about what I'm looking for. I'm looking for remote job opportunities. I'm more important than solving these problems. So it is unfocused. It sounds desperate, and it's too general. And it's missing a huge, huge component, which is LinkedIn is searchable. So recruiters and hiring managers search for people based on keywords. So if you have used all of your keywords up in your headline on seeking remote job opportunities, that's not going to show up. When a recruiter is actually searching for someone with your skill set, you will not show up. If you have a headline that is optimized with the keywords for SEO, and it has either the company type or client type that you serve, and either key performance indicators, the industry, or how you accomplish those results, and then that exact potential job title, that's going to get you noticed because you're going to actually come up in the filters. A lot of this is just about visibility, right? And we talked about the fact that it's almost worse if you don't show up than if something bad shows up. And that's to say, a recruiter, when they're searching online, they want to show up in the specific filters that they have on their site, because LinkedIn is different on a recruiter side. They have like their own version of LinkedIn that they pay a premium for, and that filters people based on the potential relevancy of their profile. So an example here was one of the clients that I had, and I have the arrow there specifically to her being noticed on LinkedIn after she had redone her headline, she redid her about, she keyword optimized everything. She was actually getting messages. And that's part of this process, is how can you build an online persona that actually brings recruiters to you? Rather than always having to apply and reach out and do that, part of the no application process is, hey, how do I become a valuable person online so that they're actually asking me if I want to interview, rather than me always having to ask to interview. She ended up getting a fully remote offer, and then 2 other contracts for part-time work, and then even had another interview after she accepted that remote position, but she was just going through it because it was a really cool company, a really cool remote company as well. So this can work, right? These are things that are super possible. Last mistake here. So let's talk about unfocused networking. So these are some of the mistakes that I see within networking. One of those is that people think that networking only happens at events. Some people surround themselves with whoever is around. I know that being remote, sometimes that's like a gift and a curse because you can be anywhere, but location independence does not equal location ambiguity, and I'll go into that in a moment. They also don't understand how to leverage their current network and all the opportunities that are right at their fingertips already. They take first instead of giving when they have a fixed mindset and they're not expanding into new communities. And I think that's probably less people in this room, right? Because we're all in remote how community, and I'm sure that the people that are here are probably good networkers. But the solution to all this is building a network with intention. So one, it's reframing your mindset to understand that every interaction, even online interactions, like what we're doing right now, this is one big networking opportunity for all of us. Like we don't know this, but maybe Raj or Ray or Emily or Magda or myself or Emily, like we may have the next job for one of the other people in this group. And it just might happen that because I knew that Emily was trying to find something new remote, and then she had let me know that this is what she wanted, and then I actually had a friend who was hiring for that, I could introduce them. You never know when that's going to happen. So when you reframe your mindset to think, oh, well, every interaction is a potential networking opportunity, that can really help you in understanding what opportunities are out there right in front of your face. You also want to get really targeted with who you surround yourself with. Now, one of the comments I made was location independence is not equal to location ambiguity. Just because you can live anywhere doesn't mean you should. So picking the communities that you choose to be a part of, whether that's online, whether that's in person, super important. Also, search your current network and leverage the weak ties within your current network. A lot of us have a larger network than we even give ourselves credit for. And it's really important just to take a look at who in there is already working remotely, who in there is already working at companies that I might want to work at, who is working remotely in general and might have other contacts as well. Just really doing a scan of that and getting a sense of who you can get in contact with is a great idea. And then give value first instead of asking for favors. If you're constantly in a position where you're giving instead of taking, you will just basically accrue these karma points that just continue to build up and build up and build up. And life has a funny way of giving that back to you. The universe has a funny way of bringing things to you when you're constantly being valuable. That's why people who are the most valuable in the world get paid the most. It's value is always going to be exchanged with monetary gain or opportunities. Now, when you expand your network through communities and content as well, that can be super important. And what I mean content, I mean searching actual content on LinkedIn, online, about the types of topics that you're interested in, about the types of roles that you're interested in, and getting into contact with those people who wrote that and giving them a compliment and networking with them with intention. Building your network that way can be really easy and also something that is effective. So let's talk about the 5x5x5 technique. So, and yeah, Magda, that's a great book. Another really good one is Give and Take by Adam Grant. So that's where a lot of my research comes from, was from that book. I want to ask you guys a quick question actually first. So in the book Give and Take, there are 3 types of people that he talks about. One are givers, takers, matchers. So givers are people who usually give first. Takers are people that usually take first. Matchers are people after they take, they kind of match everything. So in this study, who do you think were the most successful out of givers, takers, matchers? You can type it in the chat. Givers, takers, matchers. Who are the most successful? Givers, takers, matchers. And this is looking at income, opportunities, whatever it is that they could measure performance-wise. Matchers, givers. Anyone else? Givers, takers, matchers. Who were the top? Okay. Givers were the most successful in the study. Now, who were the least successful? Givers, takers, matchers. The least successful. Least successful. Givers, takers, matchers. Who were the least successful? Givers. Givers were also the least successful. What's funny about this is that oftentimes when you prioritize a life of giving, you can overdo it, right? You can become overly valuable to everybody and you don't say no. So one of the things I recommend is, yes, give first, give value, but always take care of yourself too. Because like they say on the airplanes, if you don't have oxygen, you can't help anybody just an important thing to call out there. It's a good book too. So let's talk about the 5x5x5 technique. So this is a quick strategy that you can use today to really up your networking game. So the first thing, and this is all based on LinkedIn. So you can adopt it for other platforms if you really wanted to, but it works the best on LinkedIn. So the 5x5x5 technique is leave 5 targeted, thoughtful comments a day. So that's searching out your target personas, the types of people you want to get connected with, the types of people that work at the companies you want to work at, the types of people in the roles that you want to have, take into consideration who it is that's a good person for you to connect with, and then go on LinkedIn, and you can actually search content too. I don't know if you guys know this, but in LinkedIn, you could search hashtags, and you can filter it by content. So let's say that product management was something you were really interested in. You could search in the LinkedIn search bar, product management, with the hashtag. And you can find everyone who's posting about that. And then you can sort it by recent, and you can just start going down and finding people who are posting about product management. You can search one for Zapier, for instance. Zapier is a fully distributed remote company. And if you're looking to work for them, hey, maybe you want to search that hashtag Zapier and find out who's creating content about Zapier and engage with their content. So when I say targeted, thoughtful comments, these need to be very, very thoughtful comments that show your expertise. And also, they're not just this is great, right? This is something that can really leave an impact, because on LinkedIn in particular, all of your network can see your comments, and then other people's network can see your comments. And that's where people will be able to see your headline and all those things. I've gotten clients from comments. Because I've left a good comment, I've gotten clients. Like, really. Like, they've come to me and say, hey, I saw your comment on this. It was really interesting. And then, a few days later, they set up a call, and we talk, and it's a good fit to work together. Like, that's happened multiple times. And it's super interesting, because that can also be the way that you get an introduction into a job. It can be the way that makes you familiar to people that are hiring, all those things. The second part is connect with 5 targeted people. So what I recommend is, if you find people via content, for instance, you connect with people who you commented on their content, right? Because that becomes a very natural thing. You comment on their content and then connect with them. When you connect on LinkedIn, always add a note. There's a little button there that says add note. Give people some context to why it is that you're connecting with them. And less than 5% of people do this, maybe even less than 1% of people leave a note. And I get connection requests all the time, and very, very few people leave a note. So you can stand out just by doing those 2 things, leaving a thoughtful comment and then connecting, adding a note. You can also join a group on LinkedIn and just add people from the side and say, hey, I saw that you were in blank, blank, blank group. I wanted to get connected with like-minded people. Hope you're okay with connecting, or however you want to phrase that. But the idea is not always having anything to ask for. It's just connecting with people who are like-minded. So find those types of groups, and you can connect with a bunch of people in them. And then unfollow 5 people. This is the one that people kind of get thrown off by. But what happens is our social media feeds become a reflection of us and our choices of who we've decided to follow over time. And when you were, maybe 5 years to who you are now, you might have connected and followed people who are not helping your feed as it is. So what I recommend is cleaning your feed, like every day, unfollowing people who are not relevant, because it's like, I don't know if you've ever seen a Twitter feed, especially, like, it's a dumpster fire. So I try to keep my LinkedIn as clean as possible within the feed, because as soon as you start getting all these really irrelevant posts in there, it becomes frustrating. And what I like to do is, if I go onto my feed, I want to see things that are relevant to me. So do the 5x5 technique. Set up, if you do this well, you can do this in 15, 20 minutes. Set this up, once a day for 5 days, Monday through Friday, and watch your network just blossom. You're going to start having a ton of great conversations on LinkedIn. You're going to start getting more traffic onto your profile, and you're going to start getting connected with the people that matter. I would love for everybody to put an example of a thoughtful comment to the Remote How team. So tell Magda how much you love her in the chat. Let's just practice for a moment why Remote How has been so great with their community, why you joined the community. Just practice for how to leave a thoughtful comment, so that we can get out of the habit of doing the thanks, that's great type of thing. So everybody, send Magda a great comment. I'm going to work on one too. There you go. You got one, Magda. There you go. Raj, awesome. They're piling in. Okay. As you guys finish those great comments from Magda, the other example here I wanted to give was making direct targeted content. So we talked about a lot of people having the issue of getting connected with the right people and having unfocused networking, right? But here's an example of what happens when you make direct targeted contact. This was one of my clients who did the 5x5x5. She connected with somebody at a company who was in the role that actually, no, he wasn't even in the role. He was just part of the company, and she had targeted him because he had a funny LinkedIn profile. And the first thing they talked about was like avocados or something that was on his profile. So you can literally have fun with this. It doesn't have to be a boring thing. It can be interesting. It can be silly. But 3 days later, after they connected, he sets up an interview for her with a screening recruiter at the company. No application, no nothing. Just like, hey, we having this fun conversation on LinkedIn, and she ends up telling him, hey, I've been looking for opportunities, blah, 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 blah. And this is literally what he said. I'm basing a lot on your LinkedIn profile and written correspondence here, and I'm bad at judging people, but I don't think you'll let me down. And then he sent a picture of how he went to the interviewer and just submitted her name. So some companies allow you to do that. So just think about this. Like, this can happen. It's not totally out of the realm of possibility. They hadn't met. They'd never met in person. They met 3 days before on LinkedIn messaging. So it's a really interesting thing. Another one here is this happened a couple of days ago. This was August 19th. So one of the clients that I'm working with right now was looking at trying to get an interview at this company. They actually had a job open that got filled the week before. And because she was a little bit late to it, we were like, okay, well, we got to go back to the drawing board, kind of figure this out. And we identified two people in the organization, one who I had contact with, who I had worked with previously, and one that she knew someone who knew them. We set up the two informational interviews. She ends up getting really good information from them. She targets the right person in the company, sends them a cold video application, as we mentioned, and she's in the third round of interviews right now, after a week. It's crazy. What's interesting is that they actually had a job role open that was not online. So this is true. Like, there's a whole hidden market of jobs out there where you may not see something that's online. Okay. Now, we went through that one. Give me 1 second. My computer's messing with me. Okay. So there's no better time than now. So why now? We talked a little bit about this, but more companies will be going remote. More types of jobs and industries will become remote as well. And most people send in shitty applications. It's the truth. You're never competing against the 900 people that submit an application. You're competing against probably 5 to 10% of that 900 people. That should make you feel better. Because if you actually have a good application, and just enough to be better than the top, or be as good as the top 10% of people, you'll get an interview. And then it's just about every single time down that line, you have to be a little bit better than everybody else. And you have to gain that trust. Relationships are the easiest way to do that. But if you don't have those relationships, you have to de-risk the process for the people in that organization so that they think that you're the right fit for the role. So leverage this time now during COVID and the after effects of COVID to build relationships and skills and stand out, right? This is your time to really be able to do that. There's not a lot of music festivals and things going on where you have an excuse to go do that. So you might as well use this time to bolster your professional career. So what to do next? So one, take action. So I'll give you a strategy here. Come up with an hour each day you can spend searching. And this is for people specifically who are not necessarily working, or they're full-time in job search mode. Like, they may have a job, but they really want to find something different. You should at least give it an hour a day. Consistency is key. Think about how you can be different than others and put that block on your calendar every day for at least 5 days a week. Branding, save at least 3 targeted job listings and use the most common keywords to create a new LinkedIn headline if you haven't already done that. You can use a site called wordclouds.com, which will tell you, you can actually copy and paste the job listings into word clouds. It'll tell you which words show up the most. Use those top words in your profile because those are going to be the ones that they're searching. And then networking, use the 5x5 technique to leave 5 thoughtful comments, connect with 5 people, and unfollow 5 people daily. And you can also snag the cheat sheet that I mentioned. You can go to remotejobcoach.com/remotehow. I'll send you an email with the cheat sheet and maybe a puppy, but probably not, to be honest. And an hour is not enough. 45 minutes is not enough to go through everything, but it's enough to make a decision to change your life and do what it is you know you need to do. So do it. So yeah, let's open up for Q&A. Here's the site. If you need more help, you can also sign up for a free remote job strategy session. I do offer coaching. That's what I do as my main business. And I'm pretty full right now, but still open on taking probably maybe one more client over the next month or so. So if that's something that's interesting to you, that's available. And then there's a nice little funny name for you. Anyone have any questions? Or do I get to eat lunch now? Is that what you're saying?
Hey Jordan, it's Ray. There's no real questions. Just I just want to say thanks for the time and for the effort of putting that together and sharing that with us. Certainly a lot of useful content there.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. I appreciate that. Word class. And make sure that's the right site. Yeah, it's the right site. Yeah, so what you can do, and let me know if you can see this here. I'm going to drag this off the screen. So this is word clouds, and then what you can do is you can go down to file. The computer's a little bit slow right now. And then you go to paste type text. In paste type text, you can just literally copy the entire job description, paste it in here. Let's just take a comment here, my comment, paste that in there, apply, and then it's going to actually show you. It usually comes up with a graph. I don't know why it's not doing that, but if you go to word list, it'll show you like the number of words that show up and how many times they show up. You can export it, do all sorts of cool stuff. Sure thing, Jim. Any other questiones? ¿Tienes más preguntas, por favor? Magda, no questions from you.
I have a question. Would you be able to deliver the whole session in Spanish?
Sí, claro que sí. No, I don't think so. I'd have to have a script. I could do it, but no, definitely not. I'm conversational. I'm not quite fluent yet. Although I did one presentation in Spanish, but I had to memorize it, and it was probably like 10 minutes. It wasn't 45 minutes.
Yeah, I was doing a presentation today, and actually, like, South America is quite growing when it comes to full remote companies, and there are a lot of remote teams. So there is opportunity on the market to help these people land remote jobs. But that was very side comment. Do we have any questions from people that are still with us?
I think that means I get to go eat lunch, so I'm excited. But if you have any other questions, find me on LinkedIn. Let's get connected there, because that's like obviously, I don't know if you heard throughout this presentation, that's like my favorite kind of online place to be. There's just so much that you can do on LinkedIn. It's got everything. It's got the jobs, it's got the people, it's got your personal brand. So if LinkedIn's not a priority for you in your job search, then I would reevaluate that.
Of course. And while sending an invitation to Jordan, don't forget to add a personal note. Yeah, I was listening. Okay. So that being said, I guess we're wrapping up. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Everything will be recorded and shared in our resources, and then you'll be also able to share it with whoever you want. And yes, if you have any questions, but maybe now you're too shy to ask them, discussion space is always there. And Jordan is also a part of the community. So I'm sure if you tag him, he'll be able to help. So thanks everyone for joining and have a great rest of the day ahead. Bye everyone.
Gracias amigos. Bye. Hasta luego.
Bye.